A women's fencing match is getting global attention after a female fencer was given the ultimate punishment for refusing to compete against a biological man. USA fencer Stephanie Turner was scheduled to face Redmond Sullivan at the University of Maryland. And this video you're looking at, posted on social media, shows that just as the match was about to begin, Turner took a knee, took off her mask, and forfeited the match in protest.
A female fencer just made headlines worldwide after taking a stand, literally taking a knee against the insanity of biological men competing in women's sports. Stephanie Turner refused to fence against a man in a women's tournament, and guess what happened? She got hit with the harshest penalty in the sport, a black card. Meanwhile, the actual man gets to keep competing. Unbelievable. Let's break down this madness and see how woke ideology is destroying women's sports.
And she was disqualified from the event. The video gained more than 1 million views. Turner told Fox News Digital, quote, "I looked at the ref and I said, I'm sorry, I cannot do this. I am a woman, this is a man, and this is a women's tournament, and I will not fence this individual."
Bravo, Stephanie. Seriously. This woman has more courage than every spineless coward trying to cheat his way into women's sports. She took a knee, sacrificed her own competition, and said what every sane person is thinking: this is a women's tournament, and that's a man. And for that, she gets disqualified? This is a disgrace.
Dr. Sapphire, she said that she wouldn't sign up for events when she saw this biological male was on the roster. This time must have signed up after her. And she said, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to give it to God. If this person shows up to my event and is on my script, I would take a knee, and that would be God's will.
You know, it was very interesting. USA Fencing put out a statement on their trans policy, and in their statement, it essentially said the reason they were including trans athletes is to expand access. But the reality is they're not expanding access. They've always allowed men to compete in fencing as well as women. The reality is these men can't cut it with the other male athletes, so therefore they are coming into the female sports. And maybe there's well-meaning inclusion that has just morphed into dogma, but this is really just cowardice being manifested as compassion.
This right here is the key. If USA Fencing really cared about fairness, they'd tell these men to compete where they belong.
The reality is there are biological unfairness when you have a biological male competing in women's sports. When it comes to their strength, their bone density, their muscle mass, all of a sudden this has become completely unfair to female athletes and has taken us back decades and decades of progressive movements trying to get fairness for women athletes.
It's true. And what I found interesting, Emily, is that this was a lifelong Democrat, this woman was. And she said, I changed on this issue alone. She said, I voted red down the ticket this year. It was like waking up to the lies of the mainstream media. And she's not alone. There was a 25-year-old who told the New York Times, I was radicalized because of this issue of biological men in women's sports.
Yeah, and we've talked about that, right? That was a single issue for many voters who, yes, realized they had been indoctrinated by the mainstream media when the reality was so clear when it's facing you and when that person facing you is holding a sword. My mom fenced growing up. She's amazing. She actually got her master's degree from the University of Maryland. And I think about, as you described the biological differences, it includes as well wingspan, right? And so for a sport that depends on the distance of arms and then at the other end of a sword, that's a big deal. But even bigger is the reaction. You're telling me that who was disqualified was the person who dared to stand up for protecting biological women in sports. Why wasn't that other individual disqualified? This has gone on too far, and I'm not sure why it continues to happen. I didn't think fencing would be included in this, but we've yet to see the full house cleaning that needs to take into account of all of these sports that are letting biological men compete with the women's. And the saddest part is that the person whose future is going to be the most, the potential just eclipsed is that young woman, Sophie.
Well, so, and one of the big things is people are afraid to come out and speak because they don't want to be labeled intolerant or not being excluded, and then they're canceled. And so the reality is science isn't bigotry, it's fact.
Right, well, and to that point, I wanted to ask, why aren't more doctors? I can see everybody else, but I appreciated so much hearing you talk about the specificities between women and men. I mean, I know people on the left can't say what a woman is, but you actually can. And it's chromosomal, it's down to a DNA level. It is really fascinating. So where are the scientists? You guys should not be shy to speak up. You're saving lives.
Well, the reality is you can give a man female hormones and it can give them feminine features.
Can he
At the
grow
end
a
of the day-
vagina?
At
No,
the end
that
of the
takes
day,
surgery.
You cannot turn them into a woman. But the reality is the far majority of physicians are employed by either a healthcare system, by a venture capitalist, or by the government, and their job is at stake. And if they speak out against what their talking points are, then they could be fired, and that's their livelihood as well.
David,
But
I
you're
just want to
speaking
get
out.
U.S. Fencing in
I
here
always have
because
had an
they
opinion.
did
Harris, you know me.
They did respond to us. USA Fencing said this: USA Fencing enacted our current transgender and non-binary athlete policy in 2023. The policy was designed to expand access to the sport of fencing and create inclusive, safe spaces. The policy is based on the principle everyone should have the ability to participate. It goes on. Okay, but women can't meaningfully participate against biological men.
First of all, that would be a dumb statement by a dumb lawyer. You know, you get these lawyer-like statements. These men are cowards. They're failed men competing against women. Your point about the biology, speed and response for a male, muscle response in fencing, that matters in your ability to parry, thrust, make contact, to add to the wingspan. And when you add all this together, the cowards are USA Fencing. Very great point. They have men and they have women competed against each other. In life, if you can't make it, you can't make it. And as for the people who won't stand up in these healthcare companies and whatever, take a lesson from this young lady who took a stance. You might lose your job, but would you rather be a coward for life or risk losing your job for standing up to simple truth?
I
Yes.
apologize. I called her Sophie. Her name is Stephanie.
And that young woman, Stephanie Turner, she will be on the Fox News channel. You will not want to miss this. She's joining America Reports today at 2 p.m. I cannot wait to hear what she says.
We're interested in a female fencer stands up for fairness in women's sports. She did it by taking a knee and refusing to compete against a biological male at a tournament over the weekend. The referee's response, a black card, the sport's most severe penalty, which means expulsion from the tournament. Let's bring in the athlete at the center of it all, Stephanie Turner. And Stephanie, thanks so much for being with us. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
And this is something that you've been preparing for an awfully long time. You decided that you were going to take yourself out of the tournament. What was the thinking in leading up to the decision where you took a knee?
Right, so this was actually a regional tournament held by the USFA at the University of Maryland. So part of my pre-competition ritual is to check the online registration to see who is going to be there and just double check my check-in times. And on the registration list, I saw Redmond Sullivan's name listed there. And I recognized this individual from a previous Redux article that had been written stating that this person was a man who had previously competed on the men's team at Wagner and was now competing as a woman within the USFA. So from that point, I just got really disappointed with the USFA and with this tournament, and I just felt like at a loss. I'd already committed so much money to it and training hours, and I was literally looking forward to this. I do this tournament every year.
Yeah.
I think this may be like my 10th year in a row doing this tournament. And I just got really sad and I started crying because this was like the last thing I wanted to deal with in my competition.
So
experience.
at one point in the video,
when I
so we
went
see
there,
we see you take a knee, and then the official comes over. What did you say to the official at that point?
So the official came over to me and asked if I was still refusing to fence, and I said yes. Oh, and are you talking about initially,
Yes.
or when I got the black card?
No, initially.
Initially, I told them that I was refusing to fence because this person is a man and I am a woman, and this is a women's tournament, and I refuse to fence on principle.
This right here is bravery. This woman had everything to lose, years of training, opportunities, and she still stood on principle. Meanwhile, the guy gets full support from the board and a pat on the back for cosplaying as a female athlete. When women finally stand up, they get blacklisted, but the guys invading their spaces, the left says they're stunning and brave. They got it backwards.
And then later, right after this, we see your opponent comes over. What did you say to your opponent at that point?
My opponent was a little bit confused, thinking that I was maybe hurt. And I said, no, I am refusing to fence you because I'm a woman and you are a man. I have much love and respect for you, but I will not compete against you.
Wow.
And he responded, okay, well, there's a, yes?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I'm sorry, what was his response?
His response was, okay, but there's a member of the board of directors here, and he supports me, and there's a policy that says that I'm a woman and I'm allowed to compete in the women's tournament, and if you do this, you're going to get black carded. And I said, I know.
So here's what USA Fencing said in a statement to Fox News Digital. USA Fencing enacted our current transgender and non-binary athlete policy in 2023. The policy was designed to expand access to the sport of fencing and create inclusive, safe spaces. It goes on to talk more. But this idea about inclusive, safe spaces, what about inclusive, safe spaces for female athletes?
Right. There's nothing for me and there's everything for him, because I have no choice as a woman, as a female, in where I compete. I am a woman and I have an athletic disadvantage to men, so I compete in the women's division, which is where I rightfully am. But he has been given this opportunity to fence in the women's division, and he can compete. He can easily compete in the men's division. He can also compete at mixed events in local tournaments if he wants. There is a place for him. So the idea that they're creating, they're expanding the women's is just essentially making it an open tournament that can include men, and it ends up hurting me and other girls.
So you've got the support of Riley Gaines, who was on our network earlier today, and former tennis star Martina Navratilova, who put this out on X. She said, this is what happens when female athletes protest. Anyone here still think this is fair? I am fuming, and shame on USA Fencing. Shame on you for doing this. How dare you throw women under the gender BS bus?
Martina Navratilova, a legend in women's sports, is absolutely right. This is a disgrace. USA Fencing is so desperate to cater to woke cultists that they're willing to sacrifice their own female athletes. And let's not forget, Stephanie Turner was a lifelong Democrat who switched sides over this issue. But here's the real question. When will more athletes, coaches, and organizations grow a spine and say, enough?
I mean, this doesn't come at the expense of male athletes. We don't see this in the flip side of the coin. This all comes at the expense of female athletes like yourself, like Riley Gaines, like the girls who lost that race by 7 seconds in Oregon, like the girls who lost the pole vault event in Maine. I mean, this is happening across the country,
right.
And to a large degree, women support this.
Right, it's happening in every sport and at every level, and there's really no option to go around this when there are extremists who take up positions within the authoritative body of the USFA. So I have very little option other than being forced to fence. And I have gone down other pathways, like back in 2023 Summer Nationals, I just didn't sign up to fence in the Div 1A women's foil because there was another transgender person that I'd recognized in that tournament. So, I mean, I've avoided it as much as I can, but at what point do I have to just avoid all tournaments altogether because there's going to be somebody who's trans there?
It's a tough choice. As you point out, your opponent had two choices: could compete as a biological male or could compete in the women's. You have the choice of competing in the women's. So, Stephanie, thank you for telling your story. We really appreciate it.
Stephanie Turner is a hero for doing what so many are afraid to do: stand up to this madness. We need more women with her backbone and more people willing to speak the truth. If you're tired of seeing women pushed aside in their own sports, hit that like button, comment your thoughts below, and make sure to subscribe for more based commentary like this. Let's keep fighting for real fairness because this woke circus has gone on long enough.